I have someone very special in the audience tonight. My mom is here. My mom, Carmen Feliciano, Carmen Maria. And if you didn't know, Carmen means poem in Latin. So it's only appropriate that a poem gave birth to a poet.
Yes.
I know today's been a real heavy day. So vamos a despojarnos ya. Let's like let it all go tonight. I hope that all the people I call into the space who are here in those photos, those are all relatives who've passed away. So I would love for you all to just call somebody in of your own and just remind us in these wild ass times that we are progeny of very resilient, powerful people. Yeah?
Yes.
DJ, drop that beat. I will begin at the end. I will begin with the dead. I will begin with the ghosts that linger like mist lit by a violet dusk. I will begin with the cuentos of hauntings and visitations, the moments where the veil thins. I will begin with the instant when we, bodies animated with the maker's breath, pathways of veins, pulsing bloodlines, the progeny and branches of distant roots planted and blooming when we, the very much alive, suddenly slip to the other side, slide into the swift realization that our footing in this realm is precarious at best. Is this a dream or waking life? What side of the divide am I really supposed to inhabit, and why are they speaking to me? Because when I wake up, I'm almost certain they will be gone again, or will I? You know the moments I'm talking about, you've had one too. A dream where cold fingers linger on your face. The story your tia used to tell of how an uncle was walking around the house at 2 a.m. the day after he died. Or the mysterious blue light your cousins swear they saw at sunset down by the creek on Abuelo's farm that floated towards them and sent their screaming asses running back up the hill to Abuela's house. Or that sudden chill on the back of your neck when you know for sure someone is staring at you, but all you turn and see is sunlight fragmenting into a rainbow orb, like the glowing rings in old photos of the long since departed pictures of people we sometimes never even met that look as if they will begin to speak to us at any moment, or the pictures of the one time we met somebody's cousin's cousin at a family gathering that's now tucked into some dusty, brittle photo album where everybody got 7 versions of what happened that day. Because see, that was Fulano's birthday, no, that was Lily's quinceañera, no, that was Edgar's baptism, it wasn't any of those, that was Richard's wedding, those moments. Photo flashes of faded memories. The uncertainty of which side of the veil we are really standing in is where I will begin. I will be honest, I am an unreliable storyteller. And what you hear today may not actually be as it happened, might come more from the other side than anywhere else, might be more sourced from spirit than anything corporal, but it's as it was told to me, and as I remember, mostly. So I will begin at the end. I will begin with a death, since each one is a birth, because isn't dying a kind of labor that can take us to another place?
Adiós, madre mía y hermano querido. Adiós, madre mía y hermano querido.
Vamos a empezar de nuevo. Ajá. This is the cold read, y'all.
Ay, lelo, lelo, lay, lelo, lay, lelo, lela. Adiós, madre mía y hermano.
time she was 5 years old, my maternal grandmother, Segunda Martinez Rivera, had lost her mother and a baby brother that she adored. Ibae, my great-grandmother, name Teresa Rivera, date of birth unknown, place of birth unknown, date of death unknown, resting place unknown. Ibae, my grand-uncle, name unknown, date of birth unknown, place of birth unknown, date of death unknown, resting place unknown. For days or nights or weeks or months or some undisclosed, unknown stretch of time, my grandmother said she would cry herself to sleep, inconsolable, weeping for her mother and her little brother, until one night, in her tear-soaked bed, she finally drifted off to sleep, and in that in-between place she was visited. The veil dissolved, and there was her little brother. I call him Tasio, short for Anastasio, his father's name, Teresa's common law partner, Anastasio Martinez, my maternal great-grandfather, date of birth unknown, place of birth, Arillo, Puerto Rico, date of death unknown, resting place unknown. In the in-between of sleep and consciousness, of death and life, there stood little Tasio. Maybe he was waving in the distance. And maybe Segunda ran to him, seeing him just as she remembered, until she reached him and stopped still, noticing he was, in fact, just as she remembered, except that his hair, his clothes, and his entire body were dripping wet with water. Water pooling at his feet, water falling from his tiny body, water reaching where Segunda stood, and Tasio spoke. Segunda, por favor, no llores más. Mira lo que me estás haciendo. Imagine a grief so tidal it could drown the dead in tears. A grief so deep only the ocean could rival it. Imagine the ghost of a child coming back to console you. I imagine my grandmother drowning. I imagine my grandmother reaching the bottom of the ocean floor. I imagine my grandmother breathing underwater and walking on a bed of seashells. I imagine the sea weeping with her. I imagine this might be the origin of the sorrow that lives in the heavy-chested women of my mother's family. I imagine that Tasio and Teresa, birth date, birthplace, death date, and resting place unknown, are somewhere swimming in a salty palace of pearls and starfish and iridescent fish that fractal the water into a prism. I say spirit and mean the living. I say living and mean ghosts. I say water and wonder what its language is. I say water and mean somewhere across a great divide of spirit or land or grief. I say water and mean the place I come from. From that day forward, Segunda stopped crying for her little brother. City of big winds, city on the edge of the great water, city of fire and ash, twice burned and built, you were a village, resting at the confluence of prairie and aqueous bodies, settlement at the mouth of a river that emptied its song on the shores of Lake Michigamme. We call it a lake, but let's call it what it is, an inland freshwater sea filled with seashells and boulders carved with the history of Mastodon, still sleeping in its sandy bottom. I watch how your winds and waters meet to summon the memory of Ocean City that sings of marshlands and swamps, covered in prairies of tall grass and still taller skies, land where wolf and bison once roamed. Your first people said you smelled like wild onion and skunk, Chicago. And at the right time on a sweltering summer day when the wind blows a certain way off the stockyards on the south side, you still do. City of steel mills, scenting your air with smoke, birthplace of the skyscraper, streets crooked as your politicians, a prohibition playground for corruptions in Capone. New York might have invented gangs, but you invented infamy, Chicago. City of neighborhoods and barrios surgically sliced and scalpeled with red lines and racism, shrapnel shards of history, buried under your cobblestone, asphalt and pavement, arrowheads and underground underground railroad stops, Chicago. Nucleus of the railroads, metal wrought, wrangled and tied to train tracks, Chicago. Stable to the iron horses and locomotives that carry America's commerce on the freight lines that trickle out from you like veins across the country. A poet I once loved said, "You are the heart of the country." I say you are a heart, breathing a song so untamable they tried to tame your river instead. A song so loud it called your children north. A song that traveled south to the red dirt of Arkansas and Alabama, through the waterways of the Mississippi Delta and Louisiana's bayous, past the Gulf to the turquoise waters of the Caribe where my people heard you. Like the call of an ancient conch shell, singing, "Come to this promised land of spoiled milk and sorrow. Leave all that you know and come to live the dream of being underpaid domestics and steel pipe workers, to be lavaplatos at the Conrad Hilton and bend your fingers crocheting piecework for pennies a week. Come to open businesses whose windows the gringos will shatter with bricks or burn down completely. Come to solder engine pieces for helicopters bound to Vietnam that will carry your brothers and sons. Come and bring your music. Bring your own song and sing with me," and we did, Chicago. We brought all the music we could hold in our hands. We brought barriles and cuatros, lelolais and piquetes, our salsa, boleros and boogaloo, our guidos and guitarras. We brought our own pain and laughter in a song. We brought the strum of teeth chattering during a first winter snowstorm. We brought the rumble of plane engines revving on the last flight out before the hurricane. We brought the click of beads on the silver rosary your mother sent for the wedding she couldn't attend. We brought the rustle of El Vocero's pages and the classified ad announcing work in a strange place called Indiana. We brought the dissonance of being completely surrounded by our own language. For the last time, we brought the sound of a great migration that never ended and wrote a new song with you, Chicago, city of my birth, city of my childhood, city of my broken heart, city of my lost children and love, city of all I love. You have never questioned why my heart lives burst open and split between two places. Instead, you've always given me the music to mend it. We came on the promise de que allá era mejor que aquí. We came on the SS Borinquen and the Leopoldina. We came on lawn chairs bolted to the floor of cargo planes. We came on Pan American and Eastern Airlines, on flights filled to the brim with cigarette smoke, crying babies and dreams of returning. We came. Adiós a el mar y el viento, adiós la pintada aurora y el atardecer que llora por todo mi sentimiento. Ha llegado el momento, ha llegado el momento de dejar lo que más quiero y partir al extranjero. Tu memoria es mi consuelo, Borinquen eres lucero, farol en un cielo negro. Borinquen eres lucero, farol en un cielo negro. We came to New Orleans, forced onto trains destined to a place called California, where some escaped and stayed, and some boarded steamships bound to a different island called Hawaii, where we became Borinquis. We came with maletas full of viandas and citizenship with limitations in hand, con los chavitos que nos dio papi and draft cards in hand. We came to Humboldt Park, to Indiana and the south side of Chicago. We came to El Barrio, Williamsburg and Sunset Park, to Lorain, Ohio and Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. We came hungry, speaking bad Spanish y en inglés hasta machado. We came Puerto Ricans who became spics and learned quickly we were not really American and never would be. We came and left behind abuelas whose hands we'd never touch again. Came and left children, wives and husbands. Came and traded palmares for tenement buildings. Came and left the sun that burned crimson as the bloom of a flor de maga. We came to be blinded by snowstorms and flashing police lights. We came for school, we came for work, we came to escape hunger and sometimes stayed hungry. We came to leave the nothing we thought we had and learned how much less there could be. We came thinking we were nothing and learned we were an ocean of everything. We came, we left, we stayed, some returned, some died, some lived, and are still living, and we are still leaving, still arriving, still returning, and leaving behind the proof that we have always been and will be.
El día 10 de junio, nunca se me olvida.
June 10th, 1961.
June 10, 1961. Y si yo hubiese tenido dinero de regreso, yo creo que cuando yo llegué a la 73 y la Abundant, yo hubiera vuelto para atrás.
Date of arrival, June 10th, 1961. Location, Midway Airport, Chicago, Illinois. Emotion, panic and regret. Inventory of belongings, a suitcase of cotton dresses that would prove too thin for the fast approaching winter, probably not enough for the 6 months intended on staying, an empty thermos of coffee for the 8-hour plane ride. My mother left doing what so many do when choosing to leave home. What I did when I chose to leave home, running, looking for a way out, for an escape and exit route from expectations and burdens, from heartbreak and roles you're supposed to fill and 100 other things. And my father, he left looking for what so many look for when they leave home, what I left to do too, find work, opportunity, money, to chase a dream and build a legacy worth looking back on. Mommy landed at Midway Airport because that was still the big hub in the city, and she went straight to 63rd and Woodlawn, where her brother, sister, brother-in-law, and niece were living.
Oh, yeah.
She didn't speak a lick of English. She never left Puerto Rico before she was 17 years old. My dad had followed his eldest brother in 1960. Titi Angel had already been here for a couple years after serving in Korea, working the steel mills in Indiana, and after some odd jobs, they ended up in Woodlawn too. When they got to 63rd and Woodlawn, there was already a Puerto Rican community. Matter of fact, there'd been over 100 Puerto Ricans living on 47th in Indiana since the 1920s. See? Puerto Ricans got blessed with the gift of American citizenship in 1917, just in time to get drafted when the U.S. joined World War I. After the war, people came by railroad after getting off steamships in New Orleans, and some of those railroad lines ended up right here in Chicago. But by the 50s, there were more of us, and we didn't just live there, we had entire lives there. There was Mama Rosa's place, Restaurante San Juan on 55th and Halsted, where even the first female mayor of San Juan stopped by on a visit to Chicago and got to taste how we brought home with us on a plate of arroz con pollo. There was an Afro-Boricua on 5633 South Halsted, owned by Chin Rios, a record store and gift shop where you could get all the latest baby-making boleros and boogaloo on vinyl. There was a Rodriguez store on 56 and Morgan, and Don Cesar's on 53rd and Halsted, where you could get your basics, arroz, habichuela, leche pan, and even a couple of plátanos, when you couldn't make it up to the north side and the better stocked stores. My uncle even had a bar on 57th and Halsted that he was able to open once the white flight started, where my pops used to spend a little bit too much time at one point. We have more than storefronts. We have baseball leagues, church groups, masses in Spanish at Visitation Church, and community organizations, and Los Caballeros de San Juan, who started with the help of Father Leo Mann at Holy Cross Church on 46th and Hermitage. They were the first chapter of the largest Puerto Rican fraternal and civic organization in this part of the country that will go on to have 11 chapters in the city of Chicago alone. They established a driving school, license renewal offices, employment agencies, and their own credit union. And on 63rd and Woodlawn, they took $15,000, an abandoned building, and created a cooperative housing unit with enough space for 50 single rooms and apartments for 3 families, and a social hall where my mom and dad danced their wedding reception away. But we weren't always welcome. And while some Puerto Ricans may have thought that their one-drop ambiguity was a way to assimilate into white America, the bricks that the Irish put through the glass storefronts of the Puerto Rican businesses on a regular basis let us know exactly what they thought of us. I asked my dad years ago what it was like in the area, what it was like with the police. Lo mismo que los morenos, he said, and they called us the same names too. Then in a lowered voice, he said to me, one day, the gringos put a brick through somebody's store again, and we got sick of it. So we got a couple of us together, and we got a couple of our own bricks, and we went to the glass store that the Irish had and gave them a taste of their own medicine. Pero mira, cállate, no le digas eso a nadie, I don't know if they can still come back and arrest me. Shards, bits and pieces left behind, recollections refracted into a mosaic of memory of a life lived and ensued in Chicago before people died, left to new places, or went back home, shards. That's what's mostly left. I took a drive through the old neighborhood recently with a list of all the places my mother lived from June 10th, 1961 till now. Almost all of it is gone. Of the 9 places she and my father and then my brother and later my sister once called home, only 3 are still standing, one of which is abandoned. The church where they got married was burned down, rebuilt, and burned down again. It now sits empty, awaiting a third life. The reception hall and co-op housing building is a ghost, an echo up for auction. Look at all the places we made home. Look at all of our stories, our memories, our history turned vacant and vanished, lots, rubble gathered and dust shoved into corners of the city no one even knows about anymore. Maybe walking down 63rd Street at a certain time of day, you can still hear a bolero and a hola mija, ¿cómo tú estás? Carried on a doña sofrito scented breeze. Look at how easy it is to erase the inconvenient, how easy it is to replace and conceal it. All it takes is time, patience, and agreement. New narratives loud enough to convince, approve, deliver, sign, and seal it. Look at how our shouts become whispers, echoes of the moments we lived become photos, flash focused in pictures. Look at how lives fully lived barely become footnotes in history. It's almost like we were never here. Who knows this one? The year is 1983. You're awakened by the sound of a door slamming shut. You bolt up on your titi's bed, tossing off a pile of coats that someone kept throwing on top of you and your other cousins because they forgot all the kids were in the bedroom asleep. You were just dreaming about the gifts you got for Christmas from Santa Claus, and now you find yourself eye to eye with the white styrofoam head your uncle keeps his toupee on. In the background are the muffled sounds of adults partying their ass off. Puerto Ricans find any excuse for a party. Celebramos hasta un bautizo de muñeca, says mommy, but las navidades, Christmas time, which is for us the amorphous time somewhere between Halloween and the end of January, but this year is gonna be February 8th. Was and still is the party to end all parties. And this year, it was at Titi's house. You slide off the bed and paddle over to the door, and when you open it, it's Puerto Rico. Chicago. The spread stretches the length of the greasy table and wraps around the kitchen counter. Pasteles, lechón, arroz con gandula, yuca en mojo, guineito en escabeche, alcapurri, arroz con dulce, florecita, cookies, coquito. And if that wasn't enough, sometimes there was a pot of cuchufrito simmering on the stove that Titi Carmen brought. Not your dad's sister, Carmen, and not your mom, Carmen, your uncle on your father's side, wife, Carmen. Yes, there were three of them who always complained about everything to Titi. Heno, ay, ajeno, el cuchufrito le falta sal. Ay, ajeno, el coquito está cuajado. Ay, ajeno, ya debe de beber. And of course, morcillas, the suspicious-looking blood sausage from Maria, the lady from St. Basil who sang in the high-pitched nasal voice. It was the official novena rezadora and singer whenever someone died. Señor, the smell of Titi Angel's cigars floated around the house, along with the sound of the gravelly voice that thundered from his chest and made his belly rumble. Mira, esta nena caliente está muriéndose, Ave María. Every Theo had a mustache that rivaled Tom Selleck's and left your face feeling like a Brillo pad. Every Thea had a mustache that left your face feeling like a Brillo pad. When they stamped your face with fire engine red lipstick and left you smelling like the JCPenney perfume counter. We could stay up as late as we wanted, partly because it was the holidays, but mostly because everybody was drunk as hell. From whatever bottle it was Titian had pulled out of the 3-foot diameter world globe that magically opened into a liquor cabinet. Chivas Regal, check. Bacardi, check. Crown Royal, check. Peach schnapps, vodka, gin, check, check, check. Sometimes you might even catch a sip from a styrofoam cup somebody put down thinking it really was just big people juice. Beers, piña colada, Sinbad, the squawking parrot, El Gran Combo blaring from the speaker, cousins running in between everybody's legs, Snuffy the Shih Tzu humping my right leg, the electric blue glow of the white artificial Christmas tree in front of the bay window sweating from the island heat inside the house, and suddenly someone was pounding on the front door, and at 11, in rushed a symphony of bongos, guitars, guidos, cuatros, and maracas. Coño, abre la puerta, puñeta, que está bajo cero. The parranda would begin. Puerto Ricans from every side of the city, friends and relatives turned roving musicians crisscrossing the city from someone's third-floor apartment on Armitage to a musty basement on the south side would show up unannounced at your house at all hours of the night to surprise you with a trulla and a bottle of pitorro and coquito to remind you this is how it was done back home, and somehow everybody knew the songs. I would sit on my father's lap as he showed me how to play a guido, and I'd stare in awe up at my Uncle Heno, who was always a little too antsy and a little too skinny, holding a cuatro the way you would a beloved and singing like a San Lorenzo sunrise lived in his throat when everyone's voices were exhausted. Someone who had not had enough to drink would think to switch the console record player back on, and a bolero would crackle from the speakers. And this is when the tios and tias would dance, swaying cheek to cheek, bodies pressed together like two hands clasped for a moment. The nagging, the arguing, the moaning, the jodiendo, the mira que ese hombre siempre bebiendo y esa mujer que nunca se calla, que jodienda, I imagine. This is where they all fell in love, a collection of jibaros and jibaras transplanted to the heartland of America. Resting on the tired shoulders of Chicago, fighting to preserve a piece of tropical paradise in the middle of blizzards, leaving pieces of themselves and children and grandchildren. This is how to build a tropical island in the middle of a frozen city. You gather all your kin and bring too much food and too much liquor and all their rage and all their joy and all their sorrow, and you sing until the warmth of memory melts the cold of homesickness. The first hymn I ever learned to sing was a petition for protection. Before a hello, before a foot crossed the threshold, before the first hug, before the first cup of coffee, before the first syllable of bochinche was uttered, one word, spoken like a secret passage, allowed you entrance into the kingdom of Titi's house. Bendición. Que Dios y la Virgen te bendigan y te acompañen, mi santa. One word could call forth a laying on of hands, worn and wrinkled as the pages of your mother's Bible. One word could dance forth fingers that danced at crossroads on your forehead. One word could call forth a blessing capable of warding off enemies, evil eye, wagging tongue, sickness, and all manner of calamity. One word could baptize you and make you new. One word could beatify your elders and turn you to supplicant. My family were the first saints I knew of before any other celestial beings, and how could they be anything less than holy? My tios, clean-shaven, thick-mustached, muscular men bathed in brute and Old Spice, their baritone voices scented with tobacco and rum. Tios with voices that yelled and laughed and puñeta coño en carajo their way through broken English to build a life in a strange place. Tios with bald heads that glowed like a halo under trucker hats and fedoras. Tios with pants creased sharp as a machete and shoes polished to a mirror gleam. Tios with gold chains and crucifixes, gold pinky rings and gold teeth that glistened like stars, and arms so strong they could toss you up to the sky so you could whisper to God. And my tias, powdered and primed with perfume more fragrant than any Holy Week incense. Tias with dark oceans and Caribbean red seas of hair stretched to silken perfection that still managed to curl and kink at the shoreline of hair and neck. Tias with faces covered in constellations of sunspots and moles, black as a hurricane's eye. Tias with their stigmata of bright red lips and polished nails, thighs and calves covered in a cartography of varicose veins that could lead you straight to the Holy Land. Tias more stoic and sacred than any plastered church statue, more martyr than Christ himself. How could I not ask to be blessed by such divinity? How could any of them be anything less than holy? Bendición mami, bendición papi, bendición abuela, bendición titi. One exquisite word was the first ritual I learned and the first sacrament that would rest on my tongue.
We love Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico. And we also love Puerto Rico.
An American democracy, island of old world elegance, rich in its heritage of art and culture, a wealth of historic grandeur and beauty. Year-round sun makes this island a vacation paradise. And today, it is also a land of progress. Building into the clean blue skies, the island is on the move. Apartment complexes, bilingual schools, modern hospitals, luxury hotels. Progress can be seen everywhere. This is Puerto Rico, Progress Island, USA.
I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah, I think it's called Puerto Rico.
How's your dad doing? Dying, I want to say. But not right away, so don't worry. It won't be a sudden or unexpected passing. Instead, every day is another small death. Yesterday, we buried raising his arms to put on a sweatshirt and brushing his own teeth. Today, we're having a memorial for forgetting how to sit on the toilet. Last week, we had a novena for how to use a napkin instead of wiping your mouth on your shirt. Currently, we are mourning how to eat a sandwich using both hands. A couple of years ago, we said goodbye to remembering his parents are dead. Today, we're gonna go see Mama y Papa because today he is living in Puerto Rico again. Yesterday, he wondered whose house this was. Last week, he was working in Indiana with his brother again. This morning, there was a group of people sitting in the empty living room. Tomorrow, he will look at my mother and ask her where his wife is. He likes her cooking. Later today, his brother who passed 10 years ago will be here to take him to work. This morning, he looked at me, and in the English he rarely ever spoke, said, "Good morning, I haven't seen you in a long time." Yesterday is today, today is tomorrow, is the day before yesterday, is last year, is tomorrow, today, and there is no now anymore, and every sunrise is really just another one of my father's memories, setting into a long night in another story disappearing into some neural pathway gone extinct, no more lightning flashes of recognition or remembering. Part 1, Journey to the Underworld. There are no funeral rites for the children you couldn't or chose not to have. No psalm to chant when you discover your body does not do what you expected and were told it was built to do, when your body does not adhere to your timelines or your plans. There's a real special kind of grief, even shame, that comes with that. There are also the looks that quietly drift away and a sort of sympathy that you can't help but interpret as, well, what did you expect in your mid-40s? It leaves a taste in your mouth, so unique it's too simple to simply file away as bitterness. Besides, you can try again, and there's always adoption. And at least you know your plumbing is working. And besides, the patriarchy makes women too focused on motherhood, and you can still give birth to other things like art and projects. And did you think about what he wanted? You're lucky you can get pregnant at all at your age, and geriatric eggs, and advanced maternal age, and donor embryos, viable embryos, non-viable embryos that get destroyed or donated to science, and genetic testing, and bills for cryogenic freezing, and learning quickly which needle gauges hurt more, and the flesh of your elbow, crooks, thighs, and stomach bruised blue and yellow, tender from every other day, blood draws, daily injections that rocket your hormones to 10 times the normal level, ultrasound wands up your chocha while you describe the weather with the tech, and don't have sex unless you're gambling for octuplets, all before your impending 45th birthday. There are no funeral rites for the children you couldn't or chose not to have. For the ones you leave behind in the hospital debris, or the ones that look like a setting sun against the unnaturally white sky of a porcelain toilet. 2, there are no funeral rites for the tiny quotidian deaths you don't notice until you can't recognize yourself in the mirror anymore. I am losing everything, it seems. My babies, my beloved, my joy, my faith, my fucking job, my health insurance, my libido, my waistline, the light in my eyes, my hair, my poetry, my words, my mind, my God. How much more do I have to let go of until the blessings show up? God, spirit, Orisha, ancestors, universe, whoever the fuck is listening, if anyone is fucking listening, nights become a curse. Fetal position staring at the wall, and my dog becomes my only companion, curling into my stomach to sleep and licking my face whenever he hears me cry, even now. I don't know if he's the sweet little angel dog come to comfort me in this dark night of the soul, or if he just likes the taste of salt on my face. But one night, in the midst of regret and convinced I am being punished by the gods, in the midst of the anger at the body I can't control, in the midst of the relief of not having to deal with the wrong baby daddy for 18 years, in the midst of the grief that I dive into with no shore to swim to, I find Jizo Bosatsu. Jizo, a bodhisattva who has earned the right to full Buddhahood and entry to heaven, but instead has taken a vow to remain on earth until all souls can enter heaven. Jizo, sometimes a daughter who supplicates Buddha for her mother's salvation, sometimes a monk who in his infinite mercy stands on the banks of a river, Sai no Kawara, protecting the Mizuko water children. Spirits who have gone before their time or have left before their birth and caused their parents immeasurable sorrow. Children of water, who for their sin of leaving too soon are given the penance of building stone piles in an attempt to climb into heaven, only to have their work knocked over every night by witches and demons. Jizo, in his Buddha-like compassion, covers the water children in his long robe to comfort them and hide them in order to cross them over the river and grant them access to heaven. Jizo, is it a coincidence that I, a child of water, have found myself dreaming of oceans and rivers since I was a child myself? 3, offering. In Japan, the mountainsides are filled with small stone statues of Jizo dressed in red bibs and hats left behind by travelers, expectant mothers, and women who have miscarried, aborted, or lost an infant. I haven't made it to Japan yet. Nor have I purchased a stone Jizo statue to dress up in a red hat off of Amazon for $9.99. But I have a prayer for him nonetheless. May my spirit, may my sorrow, not keep any spirit stranded on the shores of a river. May I remember the moments I held my stomach and spoke to the still splitting and multiplying cells, and be grateful for the brief moments in which I was a mother. This is my offering to you, Jizo. A poem, a prayer, and a pile of stones high enough for my children to climb into heaven. I could blame it on my curiosity. I could blame it on the series of prophetic dreams and intuitive hunches that I've been having. I could blame it on my lifelong search for somewhere to fit in. I could blame it on my mother, because she told me when I was 5 that God didn't have a phone or a phone number, and he would not be taking my calls, thereby destroying any notion in my still developing and very impressionable brain of having a relationship with God that actually made sense to me. So it's my mother's fault that I find myself writing a hefty check to spend the weekend in Ojai, California, home to all the latest New Age fads like sweat lodges with no native people and angelic realm crystal singing bowl healers. Don't get it twisted, I'm a believer. Got my own collection of stones and sage next to my Rudrashka beads and Orisha pictures. So there I am, participating in a 4-day retreat with Malidoma Somé, an initiated elder from the Dagara tribe of Burkina Faso, to study indigenous African spiritual technologies. I am neither Dagara nor from Burkina Faso. I'm a really tiny, really yellow, loud-ass Puerto Rican from the south side of Chicago, but nonetheless, I am there with about 30 other spiritual seekers on the last day of the retreat, preparing for a fire ritual. For the Dagara, fire is the doorway to the spirit world, a gateway, a portal, an entry point into the realm of the ancestors. And I've been feeling my ancestors tapping on my shoulder for a minute, especially my grandmother. It's almost like she's trying to give me something. I'm not quite sure what it is yet, but I know it's got something to do with this thing she used to do way back in the day that no one in the family really talks about anymore, where she'd get together with some friends around a white table with a bowl of water in the middle, a book of prayers, and call down spirits, some that needed healing and some that showed up to offer it. I never got a phone number to God, but my grandma sure sounded like she had a direct line to something. So I guess it's no surprise that when the sky darkens and we gather around the fire for the ritual to begin, I start to cry. Maybe it's the grief of never having a real relationship with any of my grandparents. Maybe it's the grief and pain in my family history. Shit, maybe it's the grief and pain in history, period, whatever it is. The only comfort I find in that moment while I'm waiting for my turn to enter the ritual area is to stare into the fire, clutching the bottle of rum that I was going to leave on the ancestor shrine. But ancestors always got a funny way of showing up. So as the fire burns, the faces begin to appear. Small, suggestive shapes at first, a mouth, an eye, a figure, then faces jumping and flickering in the flames and the smoke and the embers and the burning. I can see them gathering, moving, talking, dancing, whispering, and then one face in the flames turns, opens its eyes, and stares at me. And I exit. Become hoarse for a rider with little mercy for this body, unaccustomed to knowing the expansiveness it is capable of carrying. The sky starts to spin, my knees buckle, and I can't stand. I begin to sink to the floor, and suddenly someone is behind me. Someone else is taking my pulse. Someone else is speaking to me, but I can't respond. My tongue's a dead weight as my mouth hangs open and my breath rattles and labors out my throat. Someone is picking me up, and I become ragdoll puppet to whatever has claimed me as container, a heap of lip limbs, arms waving like seaweed. I'm floating above myself, staring into a twinkling vortex of light and darkness. The sky looks like God is blinking a symphony of crystals, and then the crying and the wailing, the shouting out, whose voice is crying? Mama, Baba, arms outstretched out to the moon. Help me, free me. It's not me crying, it can't be, because do I even have the right to own this much grief and sorrow? I've never lost anything besides a lover who changed his mind, not really, so who or what is grieving through me? But I surrender to the freedom of it, surrender to whatever has made me prostrate, face down in front of the shrine, ablaze with candles and pictures of the dead, to whatever pulls me to my knees and pours out the bottle of rum, figure 8, into the thirsty earth. And in that moment, I know that this is the freedom my grandmother searched for in that bowl of water. The weightlessness that comes with falling up into the sky and vesseling something bigger than yourself. And I know now that this is how the spirits dance again. This is how they laugh again. This is how they cry one last time when they enter these disposable temples to remind us of how insignificant and magnificent we are. That we're the doorways we've been searching for, the bridge between remembrance and healing, and that we're the living translation of everything that's ever been lost.